Live. Live. Cool. Okay, let's go ahead and kick it off. Would help if I scroll to the top of the notes. Okay, here we go. Hello, fellow Galactic listeners. I'm Aaron Julian, and this is WSTR, Galactic Public Access, a Star Wars podcast. Welcome to episode 313. We hope you and yours are well, and with everything crazy going on, we want to continue to be a platform that promotes positivity, life, and hope. And a little Star Wars along the way. Today, we're going to be catching up with friend of the show and voice actor extraordinaire, Mark Thompson. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
Likewise. And before we dive into all of Mark's amazing performances, let's see who we got here. Miss Carla Giacalone. Welcome back.
Hello, everybody. Very excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, nice to have you around. Todd, unfortunately, has the night off. So, Carla, it falls to you to tease that news.
Certainly. Okay. So I've got first one is 20 years in the making. Quite a bit of time.
That's pretty big.
Second one is I'm out.
Oh, no.
And number 3, to me, she is royalty. And I feel like I know what that one might be about. So
who could it be? Okay. All right. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our main topic. Okay. So, rewinding the clock. I don't know why you would rewind a clock. Rewind a VHS tape. We go back to episode 142, which was Mark's first appearance on our show. September 2019, we talked about how he got started in voice acting. Consider that like an origin story, if you will.
Yes.
Then episode 177, that was June of 2020. What a wonderful time that was. We were talking about fatherhood, Clone Wars, Mandalorian, and Rise of Skywalker book. Then jump ahead to episode 196 in October of that same year. We discussed the Dr. Aphra audiobook and Thrawn Ascendancy.
Wow.
And now, I skipped one. Episode 231 in July of 2021, we discussed Thrawn, Greater Good. So now in 2023, you are long overdue for an appearance. So it's been great to have you back. So let's get caught up on you, your life, your recent work. How are you doing? What's new?
Oh, wow. I didn't realize I've been on that often. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Doing pretty good. We're kind of chugging along. My kids are old now, which is very weird for me. So my oldest is out of the house and my youngest is about to leave the house and start school. And so we're going to be empty nesters soon, except for our dogs. So that's kind of a new phase of life.
Wow.
And kind of getting used to that and stuff like that. And still doing whatever audiobooks they'll let me do, and lots of animation. And I've actually been starting to do a lot more convention appearances, mainly for my animation work, but it's always fun to meet some Star Wars fans at those as well. So
oh, cool.
Yeah.
We're going to touch on animation in a sec. But yeah, what is that like facing the specter of an empty nest soon? What are you going to do with your time?
I don't know. It's really weird. Like, I guess I do have grand plans to kind of build a proper studio and have actual like soundproofing and things like that. So that'll be a big project. But it's very, very weird. I guess if I'm being brutally honest, I don't like it. Like I know it's part of life and they need to grow up and they need to kind of, leave the nest and find their way. But I miss the, everybody being together and hanging out and, movie nights and all that stuff. And so, I'm a little lost at sea, I guess. So, but my wife and I will have,
tough.
more time to do fun things together. So that we're getting into paddleboarding and things like that. So we're finding other things to do, but I feel a little queasy about it. Like, I don't like it. I want to go to the world between worlds and go through one of those portals and
yeah. Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. But sounds like you're Gonna try to make the most of it.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. New adventures.
Awesome. Maybe one day you'll be the voice of Obi-Wan in their heads.
Yeah,
Use the Force.
that's the hope. Instead of like, be quiet, Dad, leave us alone. Stop haunting us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's get caught up on some of your recent work. So Star Wars Visions,
Yeah.
where the hell did that come from?
Ah,
That came out in September of 2021.
yep.
Your roots have been animation, so tell us about it. How does it feel to be in a Star Wars animation project?
That was definitely a dream come true. Like it was so amazing, and just like I was super pumped. And it was basically a buddy of mine, Mike Sinner Nicholas, owns a audio studio called NYAV Post, and it was one of the studios that got tapped to kind of do some of the English dub. And he knew what a diehard Star Wars fan I was, and he was like, I have something, but I can't tell you what it is. But like, do you? I think you're gonna really like it. And I'm like, okay. So like, he kind of pulled me in and told me what it was. And I knew they had announced Star Wars Visions, and the studios had been working on it. So I was, very excited about it just as a fan. And then when he called me and kind of let me know there's some bit parts here that it'd be great if you could jump in, I was like, yes, please, yes. So he brought me in, and I did Lan, who's like the 3-headed drummer in Tatooine Rhapsody, which I really loved, because the animation style was very similar to the way like Pokemon looks, so it felt like a kind of interesting blending of my worlds, so to be a part of that. And then I did some ancillary characters and like the twins and things like that, like some stormtroopers and stuff. And but he like, we did my parts, but then like he was like, do you want to see the whole thing? I was like, yeah. So like he like let me like watch the whole episode, and then we watched what was the one with David Harbour, and it was like the old Sith guy on the planet, and like, but I got to watch that one.
Oh yeah,
it was up on the dock when they were recording it, so I was like,
I think that was like the Master or something.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just awesome. Like I was that's one of the things I was hoping to get to do one day, and I'd love to do more of it one day. But it was so fun. It was definitely an answered prayer. It was really cool.
Awesome.
About how long did it take for each episode to record and get through it?
My parts were pretty small, so like maybe like a couple hours, because like we kind of padded some of the chanting and stuff, and the songs. It was interesting though, like for the Tatooine Rhapsody one we did, we did all my lines and kind of got it done in an hour or two, but then like a couple of weeks later they had to call me back in, and we had to kind of redo some of the songs, because Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, I guess like improvised a couple of lines on the song to try to make it a little, he felt like it was not quite getting adapted like accurately to what they were doing in the Japanese, and he wanted to make it more authentic or more, sound better or something. So he improvised some lines, so it kind of changed what the rest of the band had to come back and say. So we had to come back and like redo the song. So it was really cool. So so it was fun.
Awesome.
Nice.
Have you dubbed like anime or Japanese animation before?
Yeah. Like that's kind of one of my bread and butter jobs is doing that. Like I way before I started doing narration and audiobooks, I was dubbing like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. And there was this show called Ultimate Muscle, and I did a season of One Piece before, when it was at a different studio, and so I did a ton of dubbing, and so I was kind of very accustomed to that. And it's an interesting thing, because like you're trying to kind of match the emotion of the animation and kind of the translated version of what they say, but oftentimes the syllables don't exactly line up, so oftentimes you do have to kind of slightly change the wording or slightly change the cadence from how you might normally say it. If we were just having a normal conversation, you might like normal conversation, like you might have to like kind of say it slightly different to match the lip flap. And so you kind of over the years kind of develop a couple of skills and little tricks of the trade to kind of, figure out how to rewrite things in a certain way just to make it match a little bit better. And so yeah, but it's super fun.
Yeah, because like you have your line, and it's got to have like it's got to fit within a defined start and end point, but also the syllables have to land on different points within that space.
Yeah.
That it normally would not happen.
Right. And oftentimes if you, just the adaptation, the translation of what it is in Japanese might have many more syllables than how you would say it in English. So so you might have to add it a couple other words or pad it, or sometimes less words to make the, what it's saying make sense with the lip flap. And then sometimes the script adapter is adapting it a certain way and kind of trying to adjust to the syllables the way they're kind of saying it in their mind. But if you pick a character that speaks with a little bit more of a laid back attitude, you might have to adapt it even more on the fly to kind of match the cadence that the performer's doing. So like there's, or if you, or if the character you're doing is more frenetic and a quick talker, then you have to like maybe, pad it with some more words. And so there's all kinds of like kind of on the fly things you sometimes have to do to try to make it, really work.
So that's why it happened with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where he kind of like improvised a few lines and suddenly, the backup vocals have to match that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So did you hear about the scrap that question. So what was the feeling like when you got to see like the final project all together? I'm sure you saw it in some way.
Right.
Right at the booth of the day, but was it kind of different seeing it all together when it was finally streaming?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It's like seeing the whole Disney Plus and the little logo and everything. And I think I took a picture of the credits because like seeing my name in like the light blue letters on the Starfield was like a really big deal for me. I was like, oh my gosh, so that was really cool. And they had, they were laying on with the merch. So like I bought like a Star Wars, they actually, somebody made a t-shirt of the band from Tatooine Rhapsody. It's Star Waver, I believe. And it had all our characters on it, my characters on the shirt. So I went out and bought that shirt. And then there was like Star Wars Vision socks. And like, it had some of the guys from my episode in this. I bought the socks and like, I had like a little, I went all out and we had like Star Wars, refreshments and my popcorn holder, and we just kind of binged them all. And
there you go.
I was super excited. So
I meant to ask you, going back to dubbing for just a second, do you think that phenomenon of translating not only the words of the script, but also the meaning, and also having to change the timing, do you think that might be why there's this kind of popular sentiment that like the dubs are always worse than the subs? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I am a dubber, so I try to kind of be a dubbing apologist and, try to defend it. But I mean, sure, like some of it will get lost in translation, like anything, like when it's written in the whatever form it's originally written in, you're going to have much more nuance and much more detail than if you're adapting it to a different language and trying to make the different language fit in. And it's funny because like my kids have when I was doing a lot of dubbing, I still do a lot of dubbing now, but like when they were younger, I was on kind of some big dub shows. And I would try to show it to them, but they were maybe a little too young to kind of, be into the shows I was on. But then since then, they've really gotten into anime on their own, and they're watching like Attack on Titan and Chainsaw Man and all these things. And so they're much more into subtitles than dubbing. Like, oh, Dad, the dubs suck. I'm like, come on, man. Like, just please, like, do you remember like what I do? Please, so,
this is my life.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, it's like anything else though. Like it is an art form. And I think that there are, I don't know that I would ever like just paint everything with a broad brush and say like all dubs stink and all subs are great. Like I think there's, when it's done well, dubs can be really compelling and entertaining, because like I personally like to watch dubs better, not just because I need work, but like I if I'm reading the subtitles, sometimes I'm not paying as much attention to the animation, and I want to really be, focused on the animation. So I just, as an English speaker, I prefer, kind of hearing the English and then being able to really enjoy the animation instead of just, peripherally watching it while I'm trying to read before it goes on to the next thing. So so I think there's pros and cons to both. I mean, obviously, the Japanese or whatever the native language is that the cartoon's made in are amazing performers, and you can obviously feel a lot of the intensity and the emotion, even if you're not understanding the words and looking at the subtitles. But I'm probably biased, but I think the potential for dubs to be done well exists, and I've been a part of some dubs that I thought were done pretty well, and a lot of it is, if it's treated as this is just an extra on the DVD, that we're doing to kind of just, allow it to sell in certain foreign language markets, and not a lot of attention is paid to it, not a lot of effort is put into it, then yeah, the dub's probably going to be bad. But if you've got someone who's really, treating it as an art form and trying to make sure that we're, matching the emotion and the intention of what the original language was, then I think it can be done really well, and it can be actually really interesting and really cool,
Yeah. Or if you're lucky, it's the Ghost Stories dub.
Yeah,
and nobody in Japan is checking to make sure like
Right.
anything's going right. So you just make up whatever you want.
Yeah.
Go look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about. All right, Carly, you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So from dubbing to audiobooks,
Yes.
Thrawn, the hot topic right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we had the Ascendancy trilogy, with book 3, Lesser Evil, being the most recent one that you've worked on.
Yeah.
Our boy Thrawn has been in quite a bit of stories,
Yes.
for the last 30 years or so. So with Lesser Evil, we see a little different side of Thrawn, in the story with Thras and how he's, assigned to look over him, and they kind of become this bonded brother duo. And we see a little different side of Thrawn. So how did you approach that?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Like it was cool to kind of see him in that situation and kind of see him not just be the brilliant tactician or the master general or the combatant, but like really kind of starting to value friendship and I also like benefit from friendship and have, like being helped out in ways that, maybe he was not expecting, or, and so it was really cool. And so much of that is like, Timothy Zahn is just such a great writer and such an amazing storyteller, and, is a lot of Thrawn is Zahn. Like it's like, because he as an author thinks 8 or 9 steps ahead of the audience, and like in the same way that Thrawn is 8 or 9 steps ahead of his enemies, like Timothy's like got all these like things planned out, and he's foreshadowing things you don't even realize. Like, a lot of times when you read a book, you can kind of tell, oh, this is what's going to happen next, or, oh, I see what they're about to do, and you kind of see what they're going to. But like, I feel like most of the time with the Thrawn books, it's like, it's not until the second time I'm reading through it where it's like, oh, that's what was going on. Oh my goodness. Like that was from chapter 1. No way. Like he, planted that seed there, and like, so it's just, he's just really masterful. So a lot of my work that I have to do is just, sit back and enjoy the ride. Cause he plants all those seeds and he puts all those beats in there. So it's there's not a lot for me to do, cause it's all right there on the page, and it's really compelling.
So did you try to like alter the voice a little bit in like certain interactions where we saw that different side of the coin with him?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think it's like anyone, right? Like, our voices might change based on the situation we're in, or like, if you're in the heat of battle and shouting at someone versus if you're having an intimate conversation. And so it's more about like I try to focus more on the emotional beats and like kind of the emotional intentions, and then that kind of, if I'm focused on the emotional intention or what's happening in the scene, that kind of alters the voice on its own. And like I try to kind of keep the voice consistent, and there's like a certain attributes that have to be the same throughout. But I did find myself maybe speaking more gently or in a more warm way when we were having the scenes with Thras, and there was more of a vulnerability and a softness that was coming from the emotion of watching Thrawn discover friendship and watching Thrawn discover the value of this relationship, and not just the utility of it, but not like as like an asset that he can use or a pawn he can move on the chessboard, but like just genuinely, I care for this person, and that was a very interesting thing.
Right.
Do you think something like that was surprising for Thrawn? Like maybe even he didn't expect to feel that way?
That's how I read it, and that's how it kind of struck me as we were going along. Yeah. So.
Oh, cool. You really never think of that side of him as a character, but that's totally plausible.
Yeah.
So aside from Thrawn, we have some other list of very interesting characters. I'm probably gonna mispronounce these.
Oh yeah.
I'm more of a like physical book reader, so
okay, yeah.
I'm gonna pronounce them the way I think they were pronounced.
Okay.
But, there was General Lyrius Nakire.
Very good. Yeah.
Okay.
Nakir, yeah.
He's the leader of the Kilji Illuminae, who is also with Jixtus.
Yes.
So they're trying to spread enlightenment and, not in the nicest way.
Right.
So how did you approach those voices?
Yeah, I was going over it because you guys sent me some of these questions beforehand, and I was like, oh, how did I approach that voice? So I had to kind of go back and look at my notes and kind of re-listen to some of the references. But there was a line that I had written down, and it said, like, once Jixtus learned how to read the emotional responses reflected in the patterns of ripples and stretches that move through the dark orange Kilji skin, he would gain insight that went far deeper than Nakiri's words. And so, like, there was something about when I read that, I was like, oh, so there's the, I loved, that was such a cool sci-fi, concept of that, like you're part of the way that these beings communicate was like the ripples in the skin and as they kind of stretch. And so I kind of latched on to that, and I said, like, what if like the way that he talks, you can kind of, hear him stretching as he speaks to Thrawn, and just like, so I was trying to kind of almost do this like thing vocally where I was like stretching certain vowels or kind of stretching my neck as I spoke to kind of get like, to try to indicate in some way, maybe some of that, rippling and stretching that was going on with the Kilji. And, so yeah, that was, and oftentimes that's what I'll do is I'll try to find some distinguishing feature or some characteristic that's described in the text, and then kind of let that inform. I try to imagine like, how would that sound, or how can that detail help me come up with something to make this character voice be distinct from everybody else.
So like Kilori?
Kilori, yeah. I guess I latched on for that one. I latched on to the idea that he, that they're I kind of saw them as the space, taxi guy, like a taxi driver, because he was like, they needed these transports to take them different places in the chaos, and like, so I kind of like, I had a bit of an alien taxi driver in my mind when I was thinking of it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's along with Jixtus, we have Yiv,
yes,
the Benevolent.
They're
the big baddies.
Right.
Pretty intimidating throughout the trilogy.
Yeah.
So with those characters, like, what are you trying to convey with them? Because I feel like they're not like your conventional villains. You never know what's going to come next.
Right. So for Yiv the Benevolent, I loved the idea of this kind of gregarious, kind of almost like ringmaster, and kind of, like even in his name, like the benevolent, like I'm welcome to my, bountiful feast, and
Yeah.
like, and he was just kind of like very, very joyful and kind of, charming, but there had to be that menace underneath, and that, like on the surface, he's, welcoming and come on in, but then there's the darkness to him, and there's that kind of, that, like intimidating presence about him. So I was trying to kind of marry those two things together with him, and so that's kind of what I was focused on with him. And then with Jixtus, it was very mysterious, and I kept trying to like search through the books to get more and more clues, and there was something about him being wrapped in the veils and like
Mhm.
and gloves, and kind of, like it felt very dramatic to me, and like kind of like, that maybe there, and I don't know that we have the whole story on him yet, even now, so I think in my mind, it's like he does this very elaborate dramatic, presentation as part of the way to kind of, maybe disguise what's really going on, or hide what's really going on, and kind of, a lot of the thing with the, like, they always, it seemed like they were always using other people to do the dirty work, and they were kind of
Mhm.
behind the scenes. So there was, I kind of like this idea of almost like a puppet master, or like a, like very mysterious, the Grisk are here, and I wanted to talk very mysteriously, and like a, very dark magician, and kind of just, be very, very um creepy, and kind of, not sure what's behind that veil or what's going on with him. So I was trying to lock into him, and I I sometimes will pick performances to kind of help me remember what I want to do. And there was this old movie that I loved as a kid called Legend, with Tom Cruise, and Tim Curry played this like devil character with these giant horns. And so Jixtus is very heavily influenced by Tim Curry from Legend. So
Yeah, I one of the fascinating things about Jixtus, I thought while reading it, was he had this very like calm like
yes,
facade, but then with Nakire, he would just kind of like say one little thing, you're like, this guy's gonna explode,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's-
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So very interesting characters.
yeah, totally.
Um,
And
and
again, that's
then
all Timothy Zahn. Like, he's just so good at all that stuff.
I mean, and then rerouting back to Thrawn, I mean, not too much of a spoiler, but the end of the book, um, Thrawn loses a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, he breaks some rules. A lot of people are not happy with him, and he basically loses status as a married adoptive in the Myth family.
Hmm.
He loses his position with the expansionary fleet. Um, I mean, what was your reaction to that?
I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised because, like,
Mm,
I got so wrapped up in, the story in those moments, and kind of what was going on, that I didn't realize that we were going to lead right up to the other trilogy that we did, and that, where we saw Thrawn, when he first started with the Empire, and that he was exiled, and like, because I got so wrapped up in what was happening with, all the other characters, and and the people attacking, the Chiss homeworld, and like, and them trying to solve that mystery, that I was like, oh right, wait a minute, this is lining up exactly with that one. And so of course he has to, like, we, of course he should, be exiled for some reason, or and I guess
right.
in my mind I filled in a backstory of that was all pretend, or that was all him pretending to be exiled just so that he could infiltrate the Empire. But it was kind of this weird, like, two birds with one stone. Like, it was a way to get him in that position, but there were people really plotting vengeance against him, and so it was kind of heartbreaking, and watching him, go before the tribunal like that, and uh and shocking it, like, because I just the story was so enthralling leading up to that that I was like, oh wait, this is gonna line up exactly, and it's just like, oh man, he's a genius. So like, so it was yeah. I'm rambling now, but yeah, I was kind of shocked and very sad, but been also very satisfied because I was like, this is so perfect. Like this makes so much sense, and like, yeah, it's really cool.
So, in performing as Thrawn and all of these characters, and concluding the Ascendancy trilogy, what do you think are some important things that we've learned from the series that Timothy Zahn has given us?
That's a good question. Well, I think, you know, I think what both of the kind of recent trilogies have shown me is that Thrawn has a code. Like Thrawn has he's not just or he's not at all like a villain for villain's sake, really. Like or even villain is like not really an accurate term in terms of how he's depicted in the books, because he's more a pragmatist. Like he's more like he will do whatever needs to be done to kind of help his people, but he has a very definitely like a moral code that guides him, and like he it's almost like his ship it's like a true meritocracy. It's like you know like you're succeeding based on the value of your ideas, not like who you are or what family you're from or what you look like. It's more about like the value of your ideas and whether or not you have good ideas or not. And so and obviously we've known forever what a brilliant tactician he is and how smart he is, but I think it will be interesting to see if they incorporate some of the qualities from these trilogies into the show, because I think the way it's even the way he was used in Rebels, you don't have as much time and the luxury to kind of get into his mindset and kind of the motivations behind what he's doing. So it's like more, it is more like he's the foil for Ezra and Kanan and Hera and and kind of the opposition for them. So we only kind of get to know him as the opposition.
Mm.
But it'll be interesting if they can find ways to show these other sides of him. Now, and if they don't, it's kind of cool to know this about him and kind of know this, and then and then because there were even some things in these new trilogies that Timothy was able to kind of explain some of the things that happened on Lothal, with Price and all these other people, and what his motivations were that really made sense in the books, and that made sense that this is why he was doing it, and kind of so it'll be interesting and I know that like there's some interviews I read that Dave Filoni and Timothy Zahn have been talking and collaborating, so it's going to be really, really interesting. But I think that's one of the things that's fascinating about him is knowing that he really is just all about the good idea and not about the politics of things, and even just that he kind of despises politics, and like and just really wants to kind get to know people, and he's a respecter of these different things. And so it'll be definitely interesting to see how much of that carries over or how much of that is just kind of stuff that we'll know beneath the surface. But it'll be really interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, for sure. What was your reaction when they announced Lars?
Oh, I was over the moon. I was so happy. Yeah, because like it was multi leveled, because on the one hand, like I love him in Rebels so much, so I was really hoping it would be him. So I was excited for that. I'm just excited that Thrawn is going to exist in live action. Like that's just going to be amazing. But then selfishly, if I ever get to do more Thrawn books, I was like, okay, I don't have to change the voice again, because it's like, because if they got somebody else, it'd be like, well, now do I have to do like Pierce Bronson, or do I have to do, like Benedict Cumberbatch or somebody, so like it was kind of like a whew.
Yeah.
I think I had sent you when they announced it that like meme where it's like, oh, I asked for the real Thrawn, the real Thrawn perfection. So little funny story about that. I thought that was just like a meme that was just floating around. My boyfriend made that.
Oh, no way.
Whoa.
Because he loves your work with all the audiobooks.
That's cool.
And he's like, yeah, I made that. I was like, oh, I just shared that with him.
That was super fun.
That's amazing.
Tell him thank you.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that meme in the wild. Like I don't think it came up in our group chat, but I know exactly which one.
That was
spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you do such a great job, and you really bring Thrawn to life, and it's just really cool to see. Going from the books to the animation, and now we're gonna get live action. So
I
it's
can't
very
wait.
exciting.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. But yeah, it's gonna be so great. Like it's gonna be so good, so good.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about briefly The Princess and the Scoundrel.
Oh yeah.
By Beth Rivas.
Yeah.
So this is a fun way to present an audiobook with Saskia Marleveld.
Yes. Very good.
Cool.
Nice.
It
took me like 4 or 5 times to get it.
Yeah. Brief side tangent. I work as an audio engineer, and one of the things I've had to do this week was record a narrator reading First Chronicles. And if you know anything about that, it's among other things, a long list of ancient Near Eastern names,
right?
All with like different pronunciations. Like,
man,
the descendants of Etam were Jezreel, Ishma, Idbash, their sister Hazelelponi, Penuel, the father of Gedor, and Ezer, the father of Husha. And it's that for hours upon hours.
Wow.
I think by hour 5, like both of our brains were like toothpaste.
Right. Yeah.
So I can imagine that's much the same with Star Wars names.
Yeah.
But anyway, so with Saskia, did you record separately, or did you have an opportunity to be in the same room?
So we did record separately for most of the book. And I think that was probably a budget and efficiency thing. And also the idea that like, cause what Beth Rivas did when she wrote it was, the chapters alternate. So like one chapter is from Han's point of view, and then the next chapter is from Leia's point of view. So like, it would have been really cool if we were in this, same scenes back and forth. That would have been a lot of fun. But I think the decision is we'll tell this chapter purely from this narrator's point of view. Except Kevin Thompson, who directs most of the Star Wars audiobooks and does an amazing job with that. He had the idea.
No relation?
No, actually. Although it is interesting because the first ever cartoon I ever got was Daria, and I played a character on that show called Kevin Thompson. And Kevin was directing a show called Spy something, also for MTV, and we happened to be at Sync Sound at the same time. But this is years before we ever worked on Star Wars again.
Look at that.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but Kevin had the idea for the last. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say this, but there's a surprise in the last chapter.
I'm reading it, so yeah.
Okay, there's a surprise in the last chapter that there's a surprise in the last chapter of the audiobook that might be a fun surprise for everybody. That's really cool. So,
okay. So besides the surprise ending, what is your kind of elevator pitch to listeners to check this book out?
I think if you love, the original trilogy, if you love the banter between Han and Leia, if you love romance, if you love the adventure, you'll love this book. Like it definitely feels like a spiritual sequel to Return of the Jedi, and kind of, like it kind of picks up like right after that. It's like, kind of the celebration on Endor, and then we go off to the races. And so it's super fun, and I really enjoyed it. And then just as a bonus, if all that stuff doesn't get you, if you're a fan of, Disney parks, and if you're curious about the Galactic Star Cruiser and the Halcyon, it's not a spoiler, but it's on the cover in the promotion, but they basically are gifted a honeymoon on the Halcyon, and like there's all these kind of descriptions on things that are happening in their adventure that, you know, I got to go on the Star Cruiser. I planned a vacation a while ago, and we decided to go on it. And before I knew it, I did the book, but it was so much fun because I read the book before going, and it was like, this is the thing where Han and Leia, you know, and like they were here, and they, you know, and they're referencing like these different corners of the ship. And I was like, that's in the book, and that's in the book, you know. So like, so if you're going, it's fun for that. And if you never get to go, you'll kind of get to experience it in some way through their story. So it's so I think it's great. I think it's really well done. And Beth like really nails kind of the banter that they have. And I feel like the kind of, you know, the bickering that we love, you know, seeing Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher do, like she really captures that. And I think it's really well done.
So basically this book is for anybody who's ever seen those matching tattoos of I love you and I know.
Yes, exactly.
And have thought about getting them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. That's a much better pitch than what I just did.
All right. Awesome. Skipping ahead a little bit. You had a revisit with some Legends material with the Bacta War by Michael Stackpole. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was so cool. It was really fun to kind of get back and do those and do the kind of full unabridged version, you know, because they had audiobooks when they first came out, but they were heavily abridged, and so it was so cool to kind of get to do that. And you know, it was really weird, like, because this was kind of we recorded them kind of coming out of a lot of the COVID lockdowns and all this stuff, and there's some major you know, story points in there that deal with a virus that the Empire releases, and it's like, it's crazy how like prescient some of that stuff was, because it's like, you know, there's so many parallels that these, you know, these were written like, you know, what was it, 20 years ago or something like that, and like there's so many things that, like, you know, in terms of like, you know, some of the social upheaval and even like some kind of, you know, interesting metaphors between xenophobia and racism and things like that, and how, you know, how the virus affects people and people's trust of institutions and just all this stuff. I was like, holy cow, like, when did he write this? You know, because there's just like so much stuff lined up. And then it's just like the X-Wing action is just, it felt like Top Gun in space. Like, it was just like, you know, like this, like he was so great at like writing kind of, you know, the fighter pilot mindset and kind of, you know, being in that squadron and the, you know, the space battles, and, you know, just leaps off the page, and just, you know, you can totally see this happening in your mind. And so it was really fun. I really enjoyed getting to do those.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a pet peeve that I have. Because people will, like, you mentioned stories like that kind of being ahead of their time, or like predicting the future.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of movies like They Live, which you know, it's dated in some ways, but also like really relevant as far as like the haves and the have-nots, and media control. And it's like, man, how could you write this like back in the 1980s? And it's like, nothing is like ahead of its time. It's just like nothing's changed. That's why it like
aware of it when it was happening back then, you know, or like, yeah.
But yeah, that sounds like a fun read, especially because like I'm a Star Fox nerd.
Oh, cool.
Grew up playing that, and so I have a soft spot in my heart for like dogfights and Star Wars style kind of aerial combat. So
it's awesome.
I should maybe check that out.
Yeah, you really should. They're really fun.
We're running a bit short on time, so I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. I do want to touch on the High Republic stuff you've worked on.
Yeah.
So there's the High Republic Convergence, which is a novel by Zoraida Cordova, and it's part of like the phase 2 of the multimedia project.
Yeah.
And then, so you read for that. You also read for High Republic: The Battle of Jeddah, which came out on January 4th.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a bit, because most of your work, you're doing like everything. You're narrating, you're doing all the character voices. this one is different because you're working with other voice actors. What was
Yeah.
that process like in comparison to what you normally do?
It's really fun. Like both are cool for different reasons. Like it's in the same way that like it's fun to see a play, but it's also fun to see a one person show because it's like, oh wow, what are they? So like they're great for different reasons. So the on Battle of Jeddah. On a lot of the other multicast ones, I actually got to do scenes like with other actors, and like whenever that happens, it's such a treat because it just changes the entire performance when you have a partner to work off of and just kind of bounce things off of, because inevitably they're going to deliver a line in a way that you would not have delivered it, and that inspires and affects you, and so then you kind of respond to that, and then there's this really cool like kind of tennis match going on, and so I love anytime we get to do that, and it's a much richer, deeper experience, and it's a lot of fun, So for Battle of Jeddah, I was mainly kind of in the bar. I was doing this bartender. It's like this like kind of like alien bartender kooky guy, and so I don't. I'll make sure I'm not lying, but I'm pretty sure for Battle of Jeddah, I did not get to do any scenes with any of the other actors like I did for Afra or Dooku or some of the other ones. So I missed out on that experience, but I listened to that one, and it's always fun, like listening to everybody coming together and the whole thing, So I really love it. I love both experiences. Like I love getting to tell a story and the challenge of trying to kind of inhabit all the characters in the book. But I also love getting to play with other performers and kind of, getting to be a part of that team that brings something together like that. So both are very rewarding.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. With the time that we have left, I'd like to shift focus to look into the future, looking ahead at what's coming up on Disney Plus, all things Star Wars.
Hey.
Which, moving to the future, I can feel the crosshairs of Disney's lawyers closing in on us.
I know nothing, so we're safe.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah.
We do have a ton of shows coming up. We've got we had Book of Boba Fett, Moon Knight, Obi-Wan Kenobi, She-Hulk, Andor. We had Bad Batch. We had Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And now we're looking ahead at The Acolyte, Ahsoka.
Oh, yes.
I mean, looking back and looking ahead, what are some of the common themes or like threads running between these shows that you've come to appreciate?
Well, I guess like I love what through like Book of Boba or Andor, and even Mando and Bad Batch, like it does seem like they are kind of constantly playing with this theme of found family, and like your family kind of being like when you find your tribe, or when you find your kind of group that's that's with you and loyal to you and taking care of you, and just how precious that is, and how worthy of protection that is, and how we need to fight for that and to protect that. And so I always love those themes and resonate very strongly with those themes, and I want to try to kind of embody that in my own life. So I find all of that super inspirational. So yeah, and I imagine we'll get a lot of that in Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew, and so yeah, I cannot wait for Ahsoka. Like I'm so psyched that it's August, and like it's so soon. Like because Rebels is probably my favorite cartoon of the animation stuff. Like I loved Clone Wars, I loved all of the stuff, but like I really connected with Rebels. So seeing so much of that cast in live action, and kind of I'm assuming the story is going to be about trying to find Ezra. Maybe I'm wrong, but and maybe like it looks like it's going to be, I don't know anything, so this is just me speculating, but like it looks like it's going to be finding Ezra, but maybe marrying that with heir to the empire, and like in that, which is such an interesting like how like seeing how those two things could overlap, and then I have no idea how these like who these Sith people are, what their deal is, or if they are Sith or not. Like I'm like, what is going on? So like I'm super excited about that show. I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Why do you think that theme of found family seems to like resonate or have found such a large audience?
I mean, I think it's probably because it's the story of all of us. Like it's the story, like, you know, you have your family that you're born into, and that's precious, and that's important and valuable. But then part of kind of your own personal hero's journey and kind of growing up and discovering, well, who am I and what's my place in the world? Like as you mature, you have to go out and find people that you align with, and find people that you that support you and that you want to support, and that are kind of in the battle for good and evil with. And so I think there's something in that all of us can relate to on some level. Like we all, whether it's like when you're going into high school or college or starting your career, it's like all of us are in those situations where we're kind of alone, and then we've got to find our people. We've got to find that group, and so I think that's something. It's a very universal story and a very important story. Like I think we all need to kind of find ways to be that for each other. We need to find ways to be family to each other, and so I think it's super inspiring and super universal.
I can imagine has some added poignance to you at this time of life.
Yeah, exactly. My crew is leaving me. Ah!
Yeah. But there's always more adventures to be had.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Carla, you got any final questions before we move on?
I just want to say that I love watching your reaction videos to things.
Yeah.
Like it just like I'm excited, and then just watching your reactions makes me even more excited and happy.
Thank you.
So like if anyone's never seen Mark's reaction videos to, like Mando episodes and trailers, it's a treat. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. It used to be a fun thing. I like the very first one I did was for Force Awakens, and my kids were really little, and I was so excited. And then I just started kind of keep doing them, and we would do like Marvel and Star Wars, and they've kind of, matured past it, and they kind of don't like being on camera anymore, and they don't want, but I still get excited about stuff. So it's not as exciting because my family's not there as much anymore, but it's good to hear that it brings some joy to you.
Awesome. Well, Mark, where can people follow you?
Oh yeah, I am Captain Ehud Mark Thompson VO. So it's like I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. And like I said, I'm starting to kind of do more convention appearances. So it's it would be great if you follow, because then I tend to update where I'm going to be on those platforms. So if you ever want to come meet me sometime or say hi, I'd love to hear from you at any of those events.
Awesome. Any upcoming appearances?
I've got a bunch coming up this summer. I'm trying to remember. I think I should have had this ready to go. I'm sorry. I know like I think in June, end of June, I might be in San Antonio. I'm going to be in Virginia in July. And then, yeah, there's a couple other places in the works. I'm going to be in Ocala, Florida also in July. So I'll be kind of popping all over the place. So.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, Mark, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss you, but if you could stick around for like a minute after that.
Okay, sure.
We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So don't hang up when I give you the
goodbye.
Okay, here we go. All right. So Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure. And we're still working on the commemorative plates, but surely by the next time that you're around, they'll be ready to go.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I love talking with you guys.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. One thing that we want to get before you pop off is the traditional small ad read for us
Oh yes.
in one of your character voices.
Yes.
I'm going to drop this in the chat on
I
Riverside.
was trying to find it. I was like,
Oh, that formatting is horrible. Okay, so this will be as beginning as Mark and then transforming to Axel Greylark.
gotcha. Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, this is Mark Thompson, and you are listening to WSTR, Galactic Public Access. It's a Star Wars podcast, part of the Red 5 network. Mother will be so pleased.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, now you can hop off. Riverside might bug you to stay on for a second to make sure everything uploads, but then
Okay.
you should be good.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Mark. Take
Do
care.
I hit leave or what do I do?
Yep, go ahead and hit leave.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right, thanks.
Good
Bye.
All right,
night.
take care.
Night.
Bye-bye. Okay,
Cool.
let's move on to the rest of the show, which means it's time for, all right, it's time for News of the Week. All right, Carla, take it away.
Okay. So first up, I have an article from theguardian.com. Star Wars Jedi Survivor Review, the best Star Wars game in 20 years.
Whoa,
That's quite a statement.
that is high praise.
Yeah. So the
Is that includes, that might include Knights of the Old Republic. That was like 2003,
was
2002, something like that.
Yeah.
Certainly includes the original Battlefront and Battlefront 2. That's like 2005, I think.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to go through. It looks like there's kind of some spoilers here. I don't know if I want to
not
read
scrolling down too much.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I don't want to read this. But
maybe like the first like 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, so basically they are just praising everything about this game. The opening sequence is spellbinding, is the word that they use. We see a plethora of different locations, such as Coruscant. I guess we'll be on a luxury space yacht. There's some thrill rides. Again, I don't want to be too like spoilery here, but it's everything you want from a Star Wars adventure and blockbuster video game. Visually spectacular, mechanically sophisticated, and why can't I say this word? Riotously, thank you. Riotously entertaining. Yeah, so obviously Jedi Fallen Order was a huge hit, and now with the sequel game coming, the enthralling follow-up is a huge improvement. It is a masterclass in cinematic action, but its eclectic mixture of mechanics is also much more elegantly implemented.
Ooh.
Yeah. The result is the best Star Wars game in 20 years, as compelling in the hands as it is magnificent on the screen. So, yeah, they're just throwing out there that it's can't be missed. So,
yeah.
Oh wow!
I've heard there.
No, I was just gonna. The last one of the last sentences in the article is, meanwhile, its biggest moments rival anything games like God of War or Elden Ring can throw at you. So, that's, yeah.
That is high praise.
Those are some big names. So,
yeah. I've heard there is currently like some performance issues on like the PC version. So you might want to wait a little bit for like any like bug patches and stuff like that. But, ooh. I might have to find a way to buy this. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to like spoilery stuff so that we can all enjoy the game
Yeah.
and experience it for the first time. It looks good. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So
For me, it's not a matter of like if I'm gonna play this game, it's just when.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
for sure. I'm hoping I don't take 5 years to actually finish this one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, who knows? It looks like it's improved in every way, so maybe it's like easier to pick up.
I mean, hey, if those hollow maps are still a thing, I'm lost. I'm lost from the get-go. My brain just can't visually, spatially figure that out. So, story mode it is, people. All right. Next, screenrant.com. This article says Star Wars finally confirms timeline of Kylo Ren's origin and Luke's exile.
Okay.
So there's a new Star Wars book, which apparently confirms what I just said. It confirms the timeline of events surrounding Ben Solo's fall of the dark side and Luke Skywalker's subsequent exile in the sequel trilogy. As a result of Luke's failure to support Ben during his struggles with the dark side, the rise of Kylo Ren massively defined the galaxy's future prior to the events of The Force Awakens. So the book is Star Wars Timelines from Kristen Baver, Jason Fry, and Cole Horton, Amy Rickow, and Clayton Sandel. It's a comprehensive reference guide for the Star Wars continuity. So this includes events taking place between the original and sequel trilogies, and specifically they, I guess, show you where Ben Solo ultimately falls to the dark side and when Luke says, "Peace out, I give up." So, yeah. And if you guys haven't checked out the cover of this book and everything, I mean, it looks very nice. It's one of those coffee table books. So if you're into that, it seems like it's a must-have. But just to give a little like sneak peek, according to this timelines book, 28 ABY, after the Battle of Yavin, was a major year in which several significant events took place. However, they all stemmed from the inciting incident when the truth about Leia Organa as why do I get it? I just got an Apple TV ad pop up. Sorry.
Wow.
When the truth about Leia Organa as Darth Vader's daughter was publicly exposed, which connects to Claudia Gray's novel Bloodline. And if you haven't read that one, I highly recommend. It's a great one. So this was the end of her political career with the New Republic, kind of where she broke off and formed her little resistance group. But yeah, so it seems like they go into more detail in the book about exactly how this all happens and the consequences of all of these happenings. So if you're into that kind of a thing, I would say go pick it up. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah. What else we got?
And then we have, and people, can I just tell you, when I heard this, I was shocked. I was legitimately, genuinely shocked because I thought that this had already happened quite some time ago. So shocked and a little annoyed and upset that it's happening right now. But Star Wars icon Carrie Fisher will receive a Hollywood Walk of Fame star on May 4th, Star Wars Day, which is very fitting. Her daughter, Billie Lourd, will accept the star on her mother's behalf. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was shocked because I thought she already had a star. And why she hasn't?
Yeah.
Up until this point, it kind of like irks me. Like I'm actually genuinely
Yeah.
upset about it.
Yeah. Not only because of like her on-screen roles, but all the work that she's done with like script doctoring. Like,
Mhm.
come on.
And she's just an icon in so many ways, you know. It's
Yeah.
like I'm kind of sad that this is happening and she's not around to see this, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Billy will do her mother very proud in accepting and honoring her legacy and her work. Yeah. Gone too soon, Carrie. We miss her all the time. So,
Mhm.
but it'll be happening on May 4th, which is pretty cool. So glad that they're at least picking the appropriate date for it.
Yeah.
And it looks
Long
like
overdue, but
she'll be close to Mark's and across the street from her mother's star, Debbie Reynolds.
okay. Yeah. Long overdue, but glad it's finally happening.
Yes, yes. And I believe that is all the for this week.
All right. Means it's time for Cantina Chat. All right, the part of the show where we talk about everything geeky and weird going on with our lives. Ella, what's been going on with you?
Oh, I mean, nothing too crazy. I am prepping for my voyage to Batu next week. We'll be going to Disney for May 4th.
Nice.
So I'm very excited about that. I have to start packing now because it stresses me out.
Are you a bit by bit packer or an all at once?
I have to do it bit by bit because I can't be a day of packer because
Okay.
I'm very indecisive with what I want to wear, and I overpack too, like all the time, without fail.
Yeah.
I am the worst. But I think it helps this time around because it is Star Wars Day, and we kind of want to do some special like on theme stuff, and we have some Legion gear that we want to wear, so that'll help me eliminate some wardrobe choices. But but yeah, we're super excited. I can't wait. It's gonna be a fun time. And
Does
then
Disney
obviously,
still have that policy where like adults can't dress up in costume?
so I always get it confused. One of them is more lenient than the other.
Disneyland versus Disney World.
I want to say Disneyland because when we were in Anaheim for Celebration, they had like a special Star Wars night during the same, it was coincided with the convention. And I just went
Yeah.
in my general Leia, like my briefing room costume, and they let me in. Like you can't bring any you can bring lightsabers, but you can't bring any like prop blasters and weapons and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they let me in. A friend of mine was dressed up as Lando. They let him in. So I don't know if it depends on like if there's a special event. I know with the Star Cruiser, they heavily encourage cosplay. I just don't think you can wear like I don't think you're allowed to dress as characters that are in the park.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think if you showed up in like full on Rey costume, they might not let you in. I don't know. Like, yeah. So I think that's why a lot of people do the bounding because you can kind of throw something together that's not the exact costume, but it has elements of it.
That's what bounding is?
Yeah, yeah. So like I have I'm planning to wear I bought it from Ashley Eckstein's line of clothing. She made this it's a dress that has the pattern of the Cloud City costume that I'm currently embroidering.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, like maybe I'll wear that one of the days. So it's like elements of costumes, but it's not the costume itself.
Gotcha.
But I think
okay.
with the Star Cruiser, it's a little bit more encouraged that you can wear cosplay looking things. Because Justin and Naomi, they've like created their own characters and put together their own ensemble of costumes. So yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I forget which one is like more strict than the other. So
That makes sense.
yeah. And then obviously excited for Jedi Survivor. So I'm looking forward to playing that. And then I potentially may have a campaign to be playing soon, hopefully. I'm really excited. Yeah. Yeah, we're hoping to get it going maybe sometime later on in May. But I've been itching to play. And I actually found this really cool dice set. So I was like, I'm gonna buy that. Yeah, so I have to start researching into a character that I want to play, and it's just been like fitting because I'm like still in my Critical Role binge. So I'm loving it. I'm very excited.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
You'll have to let us know how it goes.
Definitely. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. How are things with you?
Well, since you asked, still working with Charles from Conversations, who says hi, by the way. He's the kind of co-DM with the. So we're in the middle of like a 2-week break. We're working on some stuff behind the scenes and ready to co-DM the game together. So that's going to be fun. Not today, but the following one is the big with my Star Wars game, the big boss fight with Revan. Ooh. So I'm a little worried about that. Just in a good way. It's just me trying to make sure that it's fun for everyone and trying not to overthink it. But yeah, it's probably going to be a good time. Then besides that, I mean, I've been playing a lot of Fallout New Vegas when I have a chance. Which is like a old like apocalyptic Western kind of RPG game. And I've played through like all of the standard game content. And I just played through the Dead Money DLC, which I've never played before, but kind of sucks. It's not great. It's basically like, hey, why don't we do Resident Evil in our Fallout game? And the way I would describe it is like, it's as if like somebody running a tabletop game just got a visit from the Good Idea Fairy, and they're like, oh yeah, why don't we gas you so you fall unconscious, you wake up, you have like a bomb collar around your neck, and unless you do it exactly what this guy says, he's gonna blow it up. And there's like other people they have to work with on this heist, and they're all like these crazy characters in one way or another, and if you kill any of them, you all blow up. If you do anything besides what I tell you, you all blow up. And also there's this like thick red gas cloud that if you spend too much time into it, you die, and then you blow up. And there's also these like weirdo people who are like trying to hunt you down in there. It's like all these. Oh, and by the way, like all your stuff that you've spent the entire game getting is gone now. You just have to like scrounge and scavenge for everything that you need. It's like,
yikes.
It sounded good on paper. Like if that's how the game started, I'd be like, okay. But I've played like, I don't know, 40 hours on this playthrough already. And like just all my stuff is gone, and like I can't leave the area, and I'm like, this is annoying. So I finished it, and there's a lot to like about it, but there's a lot of really annoying design decisions that, again, probably sounded good on paper. So I'm glad that's done and I can move on to the next DLC. But yeah, that's been taking up my free time. Todd wrote in. He said he's been playing the Resident Evil 4 remake. I assume he likes that because he put it on there. But he also put a little note for Jedi Survivor. Sounds like he's looking forward to that. And I just realized I'm getting paid tomorrow. So
Me too.
maybe I can be sick tomorrow. We'll see.
Little hooky doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about all I've got. Which means that's the end of the episode. So thanks again for listening to another episode of WSTR, Galactic Public Access. You can find us on the socials. Heather at Hawk Awesome, Carla at Carla Marie Giac, Todd at Tizod, myself at Aaron Julian, and we are part of the Red 5 Network, a wonderful network of Star Wars podcasts. We want to hear from you, so please comment, tweet, rate us on Apple Podcasts. If you give us a 5-star rating, we'll throw in some swag. You can catch our entire back catalog of episodes at podcast.wstrmedia.com. We got merch over at store.wstrmedia.com. And we are on Patreon, patreon.com/WSTRmedia. Go check it out. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us in the YouTube chat. You can check us out at livestream.wstrmedia.com. That will shoot you through the hyperspace lanes to our YouTube page where you can subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss any streams. If you have any ideas for a show or you would love us to interview someone, please drop us an email at mailbox@wstrmedia.com or leave us a voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. Next week, it is going to be May the 4th, and we got a lot on the docket. I don't want to spoil any of it right now. Just, you won't want to miss that. So please go check it out. Okay, Carla, there's only one way to end this show. Now this is podcasting. Thank you, Mark. We've got to have you on soon. Get you those commemorative plates.
He's the best. We love him.
All right.